Hey, welcome back to another Blkcity coffee vlog. In this video, we're going to talk about Vietnam. And as I keep roasting it for different levels, and at the end of this video, we're actually going to go over some of the samples that I had sent out to Bodhi Leaf Coffee, my friends over there, Tim and company, to taste my coffee and give me critical feedback. And I'll share that with you guys. Okay. Why is Vietnam so exciting? Vietnam could be considered an unusual inclusion in this book that focuses on high quality specialty coffee, as it produces predominantly Robusta. However, Vietnam is different because of the impact that it's had on every coffee producing country in the world, and therefore merits inclusion in some understanding. Vietnam is the second largest producer of coffee in the world behind Brazil. And with that said, that sort of large commodity of coffee tends to favor more commercial coffee roasteries like probably like Folgers, Starbucks, Maxwell House, where you get that kind of coffee. Robusta, meaning that other type of coffee that is much more hardier, but not really developing and producing a lot of origin flavor that you're going to find in specialty coffee places like Intelligentsia or some of the African coffees that have a little bit more floral, more nuance, and things like this. Coffee was brought to Vietnam by the French after the war, which made it the second largest producer of coffee in the world, resulted in a state of global oversupply. And this caused a massive price crash, despite the fact that Vietnam was producing Robusta rather than Arabica. It still affected the price of Arabica because many of the largest purchasers needed a commodity product rather than a quality one. Thus, the oversupply of low-quality coffee worked in their favor, although the lack of altitude presents a challenge to achieving a high-quality product. Okay, so a lot of stuff said in there. If I could boil it down, it's, the landscape of Vietnam is kind of like what you would see in Sumatrans. Their elevation is not so high, meaning that the bean that is produced is going to be probably not as dense. There's not as much pressure, I guess, for the plant to grow, so it's not going to be as dense. Therefore, kind of like wine has to struggle and to grow sometimes, but that struggle actually makes more flavor. It's kind of like life. Like if you were not to struggle in your life or not to come up with any challenges, you would be pretty devoid of character. You would be a pretty boring person. You probably could say that this person hasn't lived yet, hasn't done much yet. So coffee is kind of similar like that, like wine. Like it has to kind of like reach and struggle and like really kind of struggle against itself under the terroir in order for it to produce some flavors that are beyond chocolate, beyond what are the typical, like beyond sweet chocolate, toffee, nuts. That's basically what we're getting from commodity coffees, and it's what most people are used to when they drink coffee. Most people that I know in my life, friends and family, are still used to dark roasted, nutty, chocolatey, sweet. Strong. That's it. And I have no idea that coffee can taste of so many other things like plums and strawberries and watermelons and blueberries or lavender or tea or things like this, right? So that's why Vietnam, at a specialty grade, being graded specialty and sold in a place as high quality as, say, Bodhi Leaf Coffee, where I purchased our green that's in the roastery right now, is so exciting. Having this sort of bias against Vietnam as a high quality coffee producer, I always love to be surprised. So obviously when I hear about that, we're going to check it out. And during my cupping session, I think I remember from the last cupping session when I was cupping Vietnam, and I've only roasted it light once. There's been a lot of requests for medium and dark roasted, which I did say, hey, I think this coffee is better suited to that. But if we're still trying to maintain origin and everything, I still want to nail my city roast for the Vietnam. I'm back and forth. I'm not married to anything. I roll with the punches. I flex and fold. My personal experience with coffee from Vietnam was in a tin can. It was called Café du Monde, right? And this is actually from it's from a cafe in New Orleans that was highly influenced by Vietnamese culture, and you would see this Café du Monde tin can of coffee, of ground coffee, out as well, just in every kind of like Vietnam household, and it was kind of like a household thing to just have, and that was the coffee of choice. It was definitely dark roasted. You never knew when it was produced. It's probably Robusta. But that's the way the culture likes to drink it. The culture of Vietnam and Vietnamese culture is to have it be to be a full-bodied, full mouthfeel, darker roasted coffee so that it can take cream and sugar. It needs to stand up against cream and sugar. And that's the way the culture drinks it. So I remember there was so many times where, like, my mother-in-law would go to Vietnam, and this is before I knew anything about coffee. I was like, oh, cool, can you like bring me back some coffee? Because she'd boast to me and say, oh, I know this farm and we're gonna get it for $1. I was like, hell yeah, like hook it up. So she would bring a big, I don't know, 5-pound bag, beans so swollen, just like triple the size of what you would see like specialty coffee, light roasted coffee, just triple the size. Things like, they look like salt coming off the coffee, oil coming out everywhere, just touching the surface of the bean and all over the bag in which the coffee was held in. And the bag coming all the way from Vietnam was just tied with a little zip tie, or not a zip tie, one of those twisty ties, see-through bag, no gusseted bag or anything like that, and just truly a commodity coffee sold at a very low price probably, and just roasted into oblivion. But then for me, at that time, that coffee was the best. I was like, holy crap, there's oil coming off of it. And I knew nothing about coffee at that time. And I was like, oil coming off of the coffee, that must mean it's super good. And for me at that time, yes, it was super good. Because at that time, that's just what my taste wanted. That's what I liked. That's what I was used to. And when I think back to those times, and I've had a good, 6 months of being kind of like snooty booty with my coffee roasting, and mentally saying to myself, I'm only going to roast light roasted coffee. And I'm sure I said that in the beginning of this whole journey. But I've really come to realize, like, I'm just a guide. I'm a guide for coffee. I'm a guide to help people discover coffee in new ways, in better ways, to just discover better coffee. And if you want dark, or you feel like having dark, like, have it. And I've also noticed that sometimes when I talk to you guys, maybe you've bought some coffee, and I get on, maybe we start talking or something on the DMs, or I think one of them was like a friend of my husband, so he had a little bit of like coffee brewing shame. He's like, I don't know, I didn't even have the right grinder, I didn't even have the right brewer. I'm like, no, dude, like, let go of all of that. I'm just happy that I get to share this thing with you, and that you felt gracious enough to support me by buying a bag of coffee, and then now you're taking a chance and going, okay, like, oh, whole bean coffee. Maybe you never ground whole bean coffee before, like, oh yeah, like, let me just grind this coffee. Yeah, just grind the coffee. Grind the coffee, brew it, taste it, try to sit there with it, just try to like taste it. Be present with it, and see if you can taste anything beyond the taste of coffee. That'll be kind of fun. And then the next morning you go, maybe I'll see what these guys are talking about by, what does it mean to like grind your own coffee, but like have the right grinder. What is the right grinder? And then you start asking that question. And then you start asking the question, well, if I'm having the right grinder, like maybe I'll have the right brewer. And then, so maybe I'll kind of like figure out what that is. And it's not really always what's the right brewer, it's what's the right one for you. As much as I like to drink my coffee AeroPress, there's tons of people who love to use their, what's that? The carafe. It's pour over, but it's all fancy. I forget right now because I don't really like it. I don't really agree with the brew model. I forgot, you know, espresso. You have espresso machine or something, Keurig cups and things like this. Like, and I get it, okay? So if you don't really have the time to like go and learn all this stuff, don't feel bad that you're not drinking, you know, Blkcity coffee the way I'm drinking it. That's the journey up until now. That's how I'm drinking it, right? But I'll tell you, I have no shame to tell you that I used to drink, you know, coffee from a can, flavored. Put cream and sugar in it still on top of the flavored coffee. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all start somewhere. And with coffee, I feel like I shouldn't be the one to judge you for drinking it the way you want to drink it. I would love for you to drink it, you know, light roasted, in a certain way so that you can taste what I had intended for you. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm so happy if you just buy a bag of coffee and you were supporting, you're like, huh, like, okay, like if you came here and watched a video and you're like, okay, like, well, what else can it taste like? That's the question. That's my goal. My mission has been achieved, where you just ask one more question for yourself so that you go and explore and develop your own journey with coffee for you. That's my mission, you know? So if you go and do that stuff, I am very happy. So that's why Vietnam is so exciting for me personally. One, because it's doing a little flip-flop, which is so cool because it mirrors kind of like a flip-flop or a new leaf turned over in my own personal life and how I view coffee even, and how I'm going to even run the rest of my life. Like, coffee has been something that can be a vehicle for change, for good, positive change, for teaching you some lessons that maybe you really didn't learn, you didn't care to learn before, you know. And it's nice that it comes in the form of coffee because it's like that much sweeter or that much brighter or floral or whatever we want to use in the term of coffee, right? So, yeah. Okay. So let's end this video with the feedback that Tim over at Bodhi Leaf gave to me. I sent him 2 samples. I sent him, I kind of gave him, try to give him like a blind, not tell him what they are. So the first sample that I gave him was Vietnam. And it was the first roast that I started to do when I was like consciously starting to create roast profiles and then, you know, roast to that. And number 1 was my city roast, and number 2 was like my full city roast. So here's what he said about the city. Great development, perfect color, good acidity, but still lots of chocolate. This is from our head roaster. I tasted plum, honey, lots of creamy milk chocolate, ripe cherries. I'm very impressed. You developed the coffee perfectly. I don't think I've tasted it this well yet. I scored it 85.5 points. I gave the arrival sample around 84.25 points. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Vietnam number 2. So this was the like full city one. Head roaster preferred cup 1. Said that this one might have gotten too hot at the end. Yeah. Still had nice chocolate and acidity. This one was a little flatter to me, but still nice. Smoky chocolate, some lime acidity, a bit nuttier than the first, 84.75 points. Isn't that dope? So that makes total sense because with the second one, I'm not roasting for a palate of somebody who appreciates nuance. I'm roasting for somebody who's more of like one of my friends. they like medium roast, they like dark roast, they like things like that. They don't really like the origin and nuance. And so that completely matches up with my intention for that roast, right? In terms of scoring, it's still scored at a specialty coffee level. And I don't know, when I first started roasting, I don't know if you have the same thing, but I think this happens with a lot of people when you start to pick up a new skill, and say you pick up steam or whatever, but there's something weird in me that was still seeking validation. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because you should, like, say if I'm a scientist, I should seek validation from my peers and be like, hey, this is my hypothesis and my scientific method. I think this method works. Then I got to go to my other scientist friend and be like, hey, What do you think? Let me get a second opinion and a third. And that's how medical journals are written, right? So the way that I'm thinking about my coffee, I'm just like, I need somebody in the industry who does this shit for a living, who tastes things and cup things on the regular, and who could tell me that my coffee is good because I feel like it's good. And maybe I need some sort of like second opinion, you know, to help kind of bolster like, yes, my coffee is good. Because sometimes you have that sort of weird imposter syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so that's the video. Links are in the description about this book. If you have read the version number 2, I'd be happy to learn if like there's anything else exciting in there. Basically, the first one was just a solid book from top to bottom about coffee. And it had a roaster's mentality, a new roaster's mentality in mind, I think, which was so cool. And even if you're just an enthusiast, this book is just so chock full of great information and written so well, and so many great pictures too. Lastly, we got our new gift boxes in. They're so cool. So finally, you know, we were testing those. We had a couple of the first ones that you saw had the old logo on them. You have the new logo on it. It's basically a simpler version, no color inside. But basically it would just be like a gift box. And I'm thinking about doing like a subscription service. I don't know. I have no idea. We'll see. Maybe like other goodies in the bag, in the box, like merch or something, or I don't know. Some ways that we can add value. Maybe not just merch, but maybe how we can add value as how can we, you know, keep creating and discussing coffee as roasters, as enthusiasts, as people who just love coffee. I don't know. A lot of ideas coming out, but anyway, thanks so much for watching. Check out blkcitycoffee.com. Buy a bag of coffee to support. Thanks so much. See ya.